Welcome to A Breath of Fresh Career, Season 2, Episode 7. I'm joined here by Matt Stannard. He's a life science advisor, entrepreneur in residence, investor. We're going to talk a lot about that. First thing I want to say is Matt, one, welcome to A Breath of Fresh Career. Two, thank you for stepping in here. As I told you, I had a cancellation. We were going to get you in anyway, but you were kind enough to jump in. Matt is an entrepreneurial drug and medical device development professional with more than 20 years of multinational experience spanning from many facets of discovery, development, and patient access. Most recently led business development and licensing efforts for a game-changing Amsterdam-based digital health technology startup. That's one of the areas that we make a connection. He's a father, two great kids, both very athletic, husband, wonderful wife. She's known for, stitching kids up in the neighborhood, which is awesome. And guys after beer league. She's also in the industry. He's a coach, and someone that I always turn to get kind of latest advice on any injury I have, or my kid has, or my wife has, and, or things like the vaccine. How are you, Matt?
Good. And thanks for having me on. It's like you said, it's been something I've been looking forward to, and I got the call as an understudy, I guess.
Hey, you're always good at that, taking that seat, aren't you? No, so really quickly, let's talk about what's going on right now. So this vaccine rollout, I got my second shot, oddly enough, and I'm actually going for a COVID test at 11 this morning because I was 6 days into my second shot and was exposed to a guy. I just found out last night, but I feel great.
Sure.
But I think it makes sense just to, be safe that I don't have it. What are your thoughts about that? Being 6 days from the second vaccination instead of the 14.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't want to play a vaccine expert here, but I've done a fair amount of drug development, and, I have a little bit of an understanding of how these things work. I think it's always best to err on the side of caution, right? So going and getting that test it's just going to give you some additional information, might protect you if you need to stay away from a group of people that might be high risk. And yours isn't the first story of somebody that maybe got exposed on the way to even their first vaccine. I have a really good friend down in Texas who probably got exposed like the day before the day of getting the vaccine, and actually came down with full-blown COVID, has symptoms, tested positive. But, on some level that might have actually helped his disease course and kind of shortened his time to getting better. So he's doing well. I check in with him every couple of days, and he's kind of a little bit of an experiment, right?
Yeah. I don't want you to think, or the listeners to think like I'm that guy that went and got my second vaccine shot and was like, I'm good.
Right.
I was playing golf on the weekend with this guy. We were outside, but we did ride in the same cart, but we'll see. I'm going to go today and should know by tomorrow. Let's talk about what you're doing these days. Life sciences, investing, advising, technology. Right now, if you look on LinkedIn, you're part of the Angel Investor Forum, an investor deal flow coordinator. What is that? Because there are so many folks that really don't understand angel investing. Tell us what you do.
Sure. So I'll start with kind of the day job first, and we can get into that as well. So at the moment, I'm spending about 3 days per week, or 3/5 of my time approximately, serving as a life sciences advisor to a company called InterSystems, where I work very closely with the marketing, business development, and product development teams. Not sure how much you know about InterSystems, if anything at all, but it's essentially a data technology company. It's got a 40-year history, 1,500 employees, operates in 80 countries, 9-figure revenues. And the interesting thing about this company is it mostly flies under the radar, at least in my space. The company provides data solutions to financial markets, governments, healthcare. So for me personally, I'm obviously focused on the healthcare side of it. Within that space, the company has very specific data offerings or data solution offerings that power things like data record interoperability. So when you go to your healthcare provider and you you go to your primary, but maybe you were seen by a specialist within their integrated delivery network. InterSystems lays all of the infrastructure that allows those patient records to be shared across your providers. And then like the electronic health record that they're entering the data into, things like Epic, those are all powered on InterSystems platform technology.
Okay.
The company is the de facto standard for health information exchanges, which are these large regional consortiums of hospitals, of providers. And it allows, again, things like your x-ray to be sent from provider A to provider B if you're being seen, by somebody that might be quote unquote out of network. Right now, there's probably more than 1 billion health records out there that are managed using InterSystems technology. And I think that puts the company in a really unique spot that they're probably one of the few companies that can truly facilitate better data-driven healthcare, which is something a lot of companies say that they're going to do, but they don't know what they don't know. They don't have the ability or the reach to be able to do something like that. So I joined specifically because of that, and my background in life sciences, my background in drug development. I want to help the company to collaborate more closely with those biotechnology and pharma companies. So that's 3/5 of my day or my week. And then the other 2 days I spend working, as you said, with the Angel Investor Forum, with some VCs. I'm also an entrepreneur in residence at Yale. So I've got this kind of day job that, I've been working in that industry for about 20 plus years. And then I'm also dabbling a bit in more of the entrepreneurial venture space, which has been really rewarding so far.
That's great. So you have 3 jobs essentially.
3 jobs plus the jobs that we have around the house, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ready for spring and taking the kids to hockey practice. So.
You got that big pile of mulch in the driveway yet?
I moved that last week, actually.
Oh, did you? Wow. Okay. Wow. Jeez. No. So really quickly, getting back to InterSystems. So you're a life sciences advisor. What do you do? What's the day in the life?
Yeah. So typical day for me is, it varies actually, which I really, really like. So I have, as you probably know better than anybody, I have a pretty short attention span. I like to multitask, but I can also go really deep when I have to. So, just using yesterday as an example, I spent the morning collaborating with our marketing team to sort of figure out what are the right places for us to be in 2021 and early 2022 in terms of conferences, drug development conferences, life science focused conferences where we can get the most bang for our buck. And then I spent the afternoon with our business development team meeting with a potential client, kind of talking through the nuances and specifics of a drug that's being developed for a condition called posterior uveitis. So this company is having some issues with with one of their clinical trials. And so we're going to try to help them solve that. So it's really, really wacky. And then the day before, I was working with AIF and I ran a diligence call with a group of angel investors and the management team of a startup that's going to hopefully potentially operate in the biomarker space. So it's a lot of cool stuff.
Wow. So this angel investor forum, can you spend a few minutes on that in terms of Absolutely. Like getting a little bit behind,
Yeah, sure. So, simply put, angel investor forum is much like, most of the angel groups out there. It's a group of investors that invest their own capital in startup companies at that critical stage where money is hard for companies to raise. And this is not, it's not, free money. It's not, an effort to just sort of, it's for profit, right? At the end of the day. So just like VCs, just like folks that are doing later stage investing, at the end of the day, the angel investor does want a return on investment. But we serve a critical kind of, getting that initial startup round into the company to get it moving along. And so the group, we source deals, we do diligence together, kind of using the broad experience and reach of the group. AIF is mostly folks from Connecticut. It's about 60 members right now. But each member ultimately makes their own decision as to whether or not they're going to invest in the opportunity. The format's nice because it allows that kind of group think, the sum is greater than the parts. but it also allows folks to maintain the independence of managing their own portfolio. We see a lot of really interesting companies, a lot of really interesting opportunities. And in addition to writing checks, there's also, most of the folks have either run a company or been on the entrepreneurial side of it. So we do things like, it may be taking a board seat. It may be just advising the entrepreneur early on to get to the next steps and everything in between. It's really cool. Really fun work.
You bring up the term interesting in trends. So tell us about some of the interesting trends you're seeing out there right now and kind of what's next in your industry.
So in my industry in particular, I guess I'll probably, two things are sort of top of mind because I'm spending a fair amount of time in the.
Are you hearing that rooster?
Yeah, is that at my end or your end?
I think it's well, we live in farm country, of course, and that is definitely our rooster.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Great. Awesome. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, I pretty much live on a farm here, and he's out, so he's around.
All right. Well, hopefully he doesn't show up on the show, but another guest wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
So trends in the industry. Two things are top of mind for me. Again, playing in the health data space, I think we've finally probably arrived at a point where health data are meaningful, actionable at scale. We figured out a way to get what was previously a paper-driven industry to start leveraging computing power. And again, now it's at scale, but and actually even government is lining up and passing appropriate laws for better sharing of health data. But I think society as a whole still needs to navigate that complex issue of health data privacy. The technology's here, right? Like we built it, but we need to sort out things like data sharing agreements and that billion-dollar question of who actually owns their health data. Mm-hmm. One of the things I think that keeps InterSystems up at night and life sciences companies and folks that are trying to actually make a difference in healthcare using or leveraging data is how do we get the agreements right? It's the lawyers and the contractual obligations that are actually holding up the show. So I see that trend of we've got the data now, let's leverage it, but let's figure out the right way to do it where we don't harm anyone and we benefit society and outcomes. And then I think, if we drill down on that a little bit more, I think some of the other trends are COVID has kind of brought this up, a couple of other things, but clinical trials have been struggling. It's kind of the age old, where do we find the patients? The patients are there. They just need to be identified. And we can also use that data that we're talking about to make trials more efficient, to solve things like gap in care, where patients are left untreated that probably otherwise shouldn't. And things like, using a big trend right now is using AI and machine learning to drive things like learning health systems, where you can build these virtuous loops of you treat a patient, you measure their outcomes very closely, and then you feed that back into the system using software and just better data methods to say, okay, the next time I treat a patient like this, we're gonna tweak something a little bit, and then we're gonna see if that patient gets better and better and better, mm-hmm. and the whole system gets better. So that's where I see things are headed now.
It's unbelievable. As you know, I help to build technology companies, enterprise software companies. Obviously, life science plays a role in that, as does government to some extent. Government's a little tricky, right? Because of
like red tape, right?
All that other stuff. But data is a big topic today, and data compliance, and how that data is used and shared, and all that stuff. And obviously, not only with healthcare, but the HIPAA violations, all that other stuff. I'm sure that plays a big role. And very interesting how essentially technology and data and technology are on the backbone of all.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's really incredible.
There's no way to avoid it. Yeah.
You could talk healthcare, you could talk patient care, you could talk e-commerce and retail. It's data's
even sport. I mean, you and I love hockey, right? Like these guys are now not only measured on the performance that the coach sees, but it's becoming a metrics driven game. How many times did you touch the puck? How many shots on net did you have? What's your percentage? guess what? You're not on the squad any longer because your shot percentage is too low. That stuff was never really measured.
I know.
With the granularity that it is now. It's literally everywhere.
Yeah. Very interesting. How did you get your start in the life science space?
Sure. So, I mean, I think, I've always been interested in science and medicine as a kid. I basically didn't read any fiction. I was always a nonfiction guy. My favorite books were about rocks and birds and machines and how things work. My parents bought me a bike, and the first thing I did was literally take it apart. Right. And I don't know that I actually ever put it back together again.
I can believe
yeah. So, I ended up with a degree in molecular biology for my undergrad, and then a graduate degree in biomedical engineering. So I was probably always headed in that life sciences direction. My first real experience in the field was I spent this summer after my junior year in college with an internship as an analytical chemist at Shearing Plow, which is a pharma company that was acquired by Merck. In New Jersey. I was working in the quality control lab. So I was a QC guy, and I was like elbow deep in, Elicon cream and Claritin syrup. And I was testing it to see if there were any contaminants, if it had met its stability requirements. And I just thought it was so cool, like watching the stuff go by on the line, and I'd pull a box off and I would literally just randomly test it to make sure that it met the standards of the company. And, it was really eye-opening for me. And I knew at that point I wanted to stay in the industry. I didn't quite know how. They don't teach drug development in college. It's just not a course, right? So I remember I was doing research for a project. I was a little bit of a lab nerd, and I had a big project going on. So that was back when you still had to go to the library. So I went and I pulled a journal. It was science. And in the back of science, there was a career spotlight that I just randomly opened to, and it said a career in medicine without an MD. Because at that point I didn't know, did I want to go to medical school? Did I want to do, I wasn't sure. And it highlighted this very interesting role in drug development that I just otherwise wouldn't have known about. So at that point it was a lot of like applying to pharma companies. There wasn't like a web to go to where you could just,
yeah, right.
There was a book in the library that I literally went to.
Card catalog and a book.
Yeah, I pulled it out and like started writing down names and addresses of pharma companies. And it was getting that first job was hard. It was a lot of applications. It was a lot of letters. And then eventually you find somebody that's willing to take a chance on you. So that's kind of how I got started. And then the rest is history.
It's awesome. Let's touch on that. How confusing were card catalogs? Oh my God. The larger the library got, it was even worse. I mean,
yeah,
I went from St. Lawrence to this teeny library, Salisbury School, very small library, St. Lawrence University. It's all based off of the student population. St. Lawrence, larger, right, but small. Then to Penn State University with, 60,000, like, you get lost in there for days. I think people slept in there.
Yeah. And we were there at a weird time too, because we had like on one hand, that very paper-based piece of it, but then the internet was just rolling out, right?
Computer room.
Somebody decided to upload.
There was a computer room.
Yeah, exactly. You had to go to the computer room. There's a network of computers around, and somebody decided it would be a good idea to take like half the catalog and upload it and then get rid of it. So like you couldn't find something at point A, you had to go over to the computer and then,
I remember that. Yeah. Back and forth. And you even took the card sometimes to the computer and you type it in with like, I remember that. Holy cow.
Crazy.
Taking me back. What's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
Sure. Wow. I think, something I think about all the time is actually just how valuable time is. I think that was completely lost on me in my 20s and even in my early 30s. I think I probably would have been a lot more productive. Listen, I had a good career. I was productive, but I think I would have probably been even more so knowing what I know now. I think that applies to a lot of things as well. When my son was born and then my daughter, everybody around me that was older and wiser said, Matt, like, enjoy this time. You have no idea how fast this goes, right? They're not babies forever. I had no idea. I thought we were going to be carrying them around for a few years, and then they're walking. So same thing.
Now Ben's shaving.
Right. Now we look up at him and right. Exactly. So, you know, and the same thing in the business world, right? Like you can always raise money. You can always find teammates and people to collaborate with. But the one thing that you can't get back is time. And it's critical to just keep that top of mind.
Man, they write country songs about it.
They do. And they're good. I listen to them.
You can't flip the sand timer back over, right? Or something like that.
Flip the sand timer back over.
Yeah. So COVID, let's talk about COVID-19. How has your job changed because of COVID?
I mean, I think like everybody else, right? One word, Zoom. This is something that was done for me. You know, I was always a kind of a balanced work from home guy, traveling. I worked a lot internationally. I'd spend a couple of weeks in Europe, and then I'd be back here in the U.S. So I always had some degree of collaboration through the computer, like we're doing right now. But I really do miss I mean, gosh, for 6 or 7 months, I didn't leave my home office, right? There was no in-person collaboration, those kind of off the cuff, hey, what do you think about this on the way to the water cooler? Or, you know, how would you solve that problem? That stuff is missing. I think it's getting better now. People getting more used to doing that over the computer like this. But I don't know about for you, but for me, it's still a little bit weird to just like, you know, pop into somebody's Teams chat or without being announced. So, and I miss that. I mean, I literally would, you know, drop in on people in their office or, you know, pull somebody aside at lunch and say, man, I'm having a really hard time figuring this out. What would you do? And that's something that we need to figure out a way to bring back if we're not going to get into the office anytime soon.
Somebody, and I can't remember who it was, a guest I had on, spoke about, you know, the value of an all-day board meeting or an all-day meeting and just being locked in a room for 5 or 6 hours together, and, you know, or trade shows, and like,
trade shows are
knowledge share that we get from that. You don't even realize you're getting, you know, you know, hopefully it'll come back. I don't ever.
It's a balance too, right? I mean, like some cases, I think we become more efficient. Like that whole adage of this meeting could have been an email, like that. There's truth to that as well. There are a lot of meetings that I'm actually grateful that they've been struck because they were a waste of time, and we can be more efficient with certain things. It's happening everywhere in medicine. You know, there's a big push. One of the things that InterSystems is working on is the whole telemedicine piece. There are a lot of things that you do, like, let's say you're seeing a dermatologist and you need your acne medication just kind of rewritten for the next 60 days. Do you really need to actually like get in your car, drive downtown, you know, spend 15, 20 minutes in the waiting room? Not really. But so certain things can be more efficient this way. But again, as human nature dictates, we're all mostly pretty collaborative with each other. And that one piece, the trade show thing that you mentioned, a lot of business gets done kind of over a beer, over a coffee, on the periphery, on the golf course, on the whatever, you know, whatever people like to do kind of quasi with work at the same time.
It's the backyard rink.
On the backyard rink.
You know, it scares me a little bit. You bring up a good point about, you know, the dermatologist and you know, acne medication just getting a renewal. But how many people are walking into that dermatologist and that dermatologist is like, hey, Matt, you know, let me see you for a second. Come on, what's that on your neck, or what's that, you know? Yeah. I mean, you shave your head, you know, so like, you know, and you're fair skinned, right? So right. You know, you live with a dermatologist, but using that as just an example, you know, it's how many of those instances are now not being picked up?
That's the flip side of it, right? And I mean, I think that as care providers, you know, I think most physicians and care providers are doing a really good job of finding that balance where, look, they were the first to get vaccinated. They were the first to get back into the clinic for those required patients that they need to see. You know, one of the things I heard early on from some folks we know that work in the emergency room are, where are all the heart attacks? Like, where are all the patients that are normally in here presenting with angina and, you know, other indicators that they might be having some kind of cardiac event? They weren't there. So it's a bit weird. And it's a great thought, but I think, again, like anything, you know, society is going to find the right balance of how do we prioritize, how do we triage, how do we get the folks that need the care to the doctor right away. And again, some of the things that health data tech that we were talking about earlier can do with, making their companies that I've seen recently that have third party devices or their own devices that they build into a Zoom call where the patient can use their iPhone or they can use another device, a camera, to get a really good picture of like a mole of concern or of, stick out your tongue, let's look down your throat and see if we can get an idea if you have strep throat or not. So they're progress, right?
Yeah. Virtual reality. It's going to be
virtual reality.
So soon, hands are going to come through your monitor. Let's get back to, the one thing you wish you would know, and obviously time and how valuable time is, but what advice would you give somebody wanting to pursue a career like yours?
I think, making a plan, doing your research, building a map and a checklist, kind of sticking to that. But, that said, it doesn't have to be like a treasure map where you have to follow it exactly and X marks the spot. I think it's you have, some kind of bands you want to operate in between. You have a focus and an idea of a direction that you want to go. You're charting a course, right? And I think, sometimes serendipity has a way of pointing you in a slightly different direction or maybe replotting your course, and that can be okay. I would say, in addition to that, always be learning, join professional societies, network like crazy, be persistent. Getting that first job it can be, for me, it was difficult. It was a lot of resumes. It was a lot of no, or no response. And I think eventually, I'm an eternal optimist. You'll eventually cross paths with someone that's probably willing to give you a chance. Once you get that chance, be grateful for the opportunity, show your gratitude by delivering as you promised, right? It's all about, finding the right opportunity for yourself. And then once you're in it, just sort of, doing the best you can to deliver.
That's great. Internal optimist. I'm definitely there too. Let's talk about some influencers in your life. We all kind of have people that have,
Sure.
taken us under their wing and provided that opportunity, provided that one next step, et cetera. Who are 3 people that have been most influential to you?
Gosh, wow. So, I mean, there's probably so many more than 3, and for it's like an award show. Like I don't want to thank one person for you to thank.
Ready, set, go, man. The first 3 that come to mind.
I'm going to cheat here a little bit, and I'm going to give you a kind of a composite and say, all right, I'm going to break it into some categories. So first is family, right? I have the good fortune of coming from just a highly motivated, just a determined family. My great grandmother, as an example, she lived to be 99 years old. So I had the good fortune of knowing her well into my 20s. She left Germany in the 1930s with basically nothing, landed here in West Haven, Connecticut, worked well into her mid 80s. I still remember what her hands look like from just cleaning houses and buildings. And she had her own house until she was 90 years old. In West Haven. I remember she'd invite me over, she'd make me a sandwich, and then she'd make me go out in the yard and like rake leaves and garden and do work to earn that sandwich. And I'll tell you what, Jess, I loved every minute of that. Yeah. That was such a valuable lesson. And then I think the other 2 people would be, friends and colleagues. And I always try to surround myself with good people, with folks you never want to be the smartest person in the room. I try to take little bits and pieces from everybody, folks I've reported to, folks that have reported to me, people that are my equal, my peer. And I've had some really great managers over the years. The first CEO that I worked with was a gentleman who, I don't want to say he took me under his wing, but he really gave me opportunities that I think, you probably otherwise wouldn't give a 20-year-old. I helped him to open an office in Japan. Just really, he put a lot of trust in me, and I like to think that I delivered back and gave him what he was hoping for.
Not being the smartest one in the room made me laugh there because you must have a really small group of friends. It's got to be hard for you. Not so hard for me, although.
Well, we're all good at one thing, right?
I can go in any room and I'm not the smartest one there. But you, Maddie, I don't know. Let's talk about companies. Let's talk about technology really quickly. Getting back to a breath of fresh career. What are some of the key characteristics you look for when you're looking at potential companies, both as an investor and a potential employee?
Sure. So, I think I probably look at the most companies. I've had the good fortune of kind of, not having to apply to a lot of jobs recently. So I haven't looked at a lot from the new employee perspective. But from the angel investing and VC side, I'm looking at companies all day long. So from that side, I use a kind of rubric approach, which we call it the 5 T's. So I can't take credit for that. One of my peers at Angel Investor Forum kind of came up with this, but it's looking at. I'll just kind of rattle them off, and then I can expand on them if you'd like to hear more. But basically, we look at the target market, the technology, the team, the traction, and the terms. And so the target market it's pretty obvious, right? Like the company should lead, or it could be a first mover or a fast follower in a space. And then they need to be able to expand that and scale it. Technology, it varies across industries, but general rule of thumb, I'm kind of hyper focused on biotech, med device, the stuff I know well, the stuff that I've got 20 years in doing. So for me, I'm looking at unique and defensible IP and patents around new chemical entities, platform technologies, med devices that are designed to scale, essentially, that can treat an unmet medical need, that have clinical utility. And then the team, I mean, this is kind of nothing that you probably haven't already heard before, but you're looking for a great founding team. You want somebody that's either done this before or has the capacity to do it. They surround themselves with folks that are good at what they do and bring something to the table. So you want a mix of innovative thinking. You need somebody who can sell, because at the end of the day, you're always trying to either sell an idea or a commodity or something. And you want focus on execution. And then the traction piece of it kind of goes hand in hand with that. What have they done lately? Have they stuck to their plan? Have they developed their market? Have they done their homework? Depends on the industry, but like in my space, most of the companies that I'm looking at, they could be a couple of years away from the market. So I can't go out and just look at what their sales look like. I have to look at projections. Is there an actual unmet need here that they're going to serve? And then the terms, that's a little bit more fuzzy math, but we're looking for reasonable valuation when we come into a company. So they can't be valued at 50 or 100 million with no revenue. I need some return on my investment so that I can do this again in the future, because it's not charity. So, again, something like 10x for a company that performs all the way on through to maybe 50x for a company that's absolutely, has a dream outcome.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even want to touch on the other kind of unique or special project. You're doing so much. I mean, I said at the beginning of this interview, you're kind of working 3 jobs, which is incredible, and to include the entrepreneur in residence at Yale. What advice can you give our listeners, aside from work, but work included, life, work, entrepreneurship, etc.?
Yeah. Sure. So, I mean, I think, something I said earlier, always be learning and improving. Think of ways to differentiate yourself. There are a lot of folks with really good resumes out there. Try to do things that set yourself apart. Look for free education opportunities. That first company that I mentioned where I worked, pretty closely with the CEO, the company offered tuition reimbursement and nobody used it. Right. So I came in, I was traveling all around the world, but I still found time to sign up for a couple of molecular genetics classes at Rutgers University, which they paid for. So, 2 or 3 days a week, I was down there, 45 minutes, an hour a day, getting bettering myself. So you have to look for those things, and they're out there. And I think professional societies can help there as well. If you look for, there's an industry you want to break into, or an industry that you want to learn more about, there are often professional societies that you can join that that can help you to get in front of the right people, to learn more about the industry, to kind of speak that language that you might not quite have yet. And the last thing I'll say there is volunteer, right? I mean, a big part of angel investing, we're writing checks, but we're also spending time with companies on a pro bono basis, helping. Like last week, I helped an entrepreneur just refine a pitch deck. Like, how can we make this deck better so the next time you pitch to angels or to VCs, your message is heard? These are all, everybody, like I said earlier, everybody's good at something. You can find ways to make yourself relevant to a business or an industry or a space. And then the last thing I'll say on that with just general life advice is don't forget that the world is a big place, right? So I'm about as proud of an American as you'll find, but we're not the center of the universe. Get out there and travel. As you know, Jess, you've known me for a long time. I love to travel. I take my kids everywhere when I can. They've seen the world. And I do that not because I want them to just have bragging rights. I want them to see that there is a lot of different stuff out there. And it's really eye-opening when you travel. It puts things in perspective. It makes you a better person. I'd say, if somebody's still listening to this and listening to me ramble, try to work internationally if you can. It's not as difficult as you might think. I spent in the last 10 years, I think almost 7 of those 10 years working in the Netherlands, in between Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and I'm still US based, but I could go back and forth. And again, I think it just gives you a differentiator and a different perspective that other folks might not have.
Awesome. If you were in my shoes, right, as the interviewer, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
I mean, I think you're a great interviewer, and you kind of lead folks through to tell a good story, right? So you're doing everything right, but I don't know. I mean, maybe, am I having fun doing what I'm doing, right? Am I getting some kind of reward from all this? And I think that's a good indicator of if folks will be successful or not. If you're not having fun doing 100%. What you're doing, you're miserable, right? Like getting up and going to work is a drag. You don't want that. You want to be like excited about it. What's my next project? What am I doing today? So I think that's a great question to ask folks. Are you having fun doing what you're doing? If the answer is no, then you should probably just give them advice that's like, look, there are a lot of jobs out there. There are a lot of different things that people can do. Time for a change.
You love what you're doing.
I do. I love it.
What, I ask this in every interview, where do you want people to connect with you? I'll throw this one out there. The leader on YouTube right now was like 666 views or 663 views or something like that for this a Breath of Fresh Career interview. So, I mean, that's a pretty good hit, right? I can't talk to that many people in God knows how many days, right? So there are people that are checking in on this. Where do you want people to find you online?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is probably best. I mean, I always try to, if, as I said earlier, if folks are still listening and they're putting the time in, I'm willing to put the time in as well. So LinkedIn's a great medium, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a local company, Connecticut, New England. I'm always, one of the things I do for AIF is I'm on the screening committee and I run deal flow. So I'm trying to fill that funnel with companies. So if you've got a great idea, if you've got a pitch deck, if you're looking to raise capital and you're in the early stages, reach out, send me a message, send me a pitch deck, and I'll hopefully try to take care of you.
Awesome. I'll add your LinkedIn profile in the notes for this podcast. So Matt, I thank you for jumping in, and thank you for this. I've taken a lot away from it. I love the 5 T's. Whoever created that, that's pretty cool. Something that I'm probably going to include in my business and thinking about whether or not I should work with potential companies. I do it, but I didn't have we all do it, right? Yeah. This is great, man. I appreciate it. We'll do it again down the road. I can't wait to follow things with Inner Systems as well as AIF for sure. And thank you so much, man. Have a great.
Thanks for having me on. I hope it was useful.
Best to everybody. Thanks, Matt.
Same. Have a good weekend. Bye.